Good morning and welcome to the third episode of the Academy on Air on how to build a mobile strategy in 2018. My name's Connor and I'm joined by my colleague Indre today.
Hi everyone.
And we work as part of the mobile transformation team here in Dublin. So we have a lot that we want to get through today. So let's get started. So today we're going to actually look at the mobile trends for 2018. We need to look at the landscape first before we then go and look at how we can build out an effective strategy. With that in mind, 26, that's the number of smartphone or smart devices that a person will be connected to on average by 2020. And we expect that to be the average number of devices. Okay, so like that means that like if we're looking at what we have on ourselves right now, there's the nature of these devices are evolving, right? We have a smartphone, we might have a wristwatch. You know, all devices are becoming smarter. They take on even more assistive roles in our lives. And by 2020, only 3 years from now, there'll roughly be 200 billion connected devices. So that's about 26 on average per person. That's up from about 2 billion in 2006. So quite a big change there. And if we want to look at the landscape then, as I mentioned, we need to look at the technology product life cycle and what is the next disruptor in this industry. So, okay, so the smartphone, something that we know is a mature market now. In 2007, with the launch of iPhone, they introduced, obviously taps, a kind of a keyboard-free phone, larger tap targets for apps. The phones have just gotten bigger and bigger, almost a hybrid between tablet and phone. Some call a phablet. We've seen a decline in the desktop market as well. So, like obviously more queries, roughly 50% of queries happening now on smartphones. But we've also seen an evolution too of wrist computers and smart speakers, which Indre will speak a bit to. And in addition to that, we have obviously augmented reality, virtual reality glasses, and people beginning to look at this technology. Face scanning is something is kind of on the roadmap as well for 2018 and beyond. So if we look at a few things in a bit more depth, we're going to talk about machine learning, we're going to look at smart speakers, and we're going to look at voice recognition, because there's plenty out there for voice recognition. We have Google Home, like obviously using Google's Assistant, we have Siri from Apple, and we have Amazon's Alexa, so Amazon Echo. Cool, so machine learning, what is it? Essentially, it's just the science of making things smarter with the data. And so all we're really doing here is just actually looking at this data and analyzing that behavior to get a better understanding of consumers. Machine learning is also revolutionizing business by helping the marketers to be smarter with the data, leveraging AI in their marketing and becoming more efficient in how they operate. For example, if mobile phones are watched vertically, that's something we need to be aware of. So this can create poor experiences when we encounter videos that are built for horizontal viewing. So one thing that Google has done is enable an autoflip feature for Google Universal App campaigns, which uses machine learning to actually identify the most important objects in every frame to produce that optimized vertical content for your video ad. So when a user is viewing content like this and not like this, we've seen an uplift of about 20% higher on dynamically generated vertical ads than a horizontal ad when it's being viewed. So then, like, Indre, do you want to talk a bit about smart speakers?
Yeah, of course. That's another technology trend that we see emerging and growing a lot. More and more users are having smart devices. Google Assistant is integrated in our Android phones. So it's really important to think what would be the next things that are coming in for marketing and for you guys. We see that users are less likely to prefer to reach out to customer service representatives over phone. So it's more likely that users that have customer service queries would prefer to use Messenger, WhatsApp, or different kind of ways to reach out to a customer representative. Smart speakers is another platform that is very likely to grow, especially in customer service type of environment and services. Also, when it comes to having these devices, oftentimes users say, and research shows that about 50% of users are likely to use these devices for purchase behavior. So what we see, for example, Nike emerging this trend and kind of trying to lead and be thought leader on it, they're allowing to buy their products using the smart speakers. So we see we will probably see a lot more of this activity in the future. So that's something to keep in mind and try to see what are creative ways to emerge this technology. And another trend that is quite similar to that is voice recognition and especially voice search. So as users, we're always likely to search for different shortcuts to make our day more efficient, more effective. We try to be smarter in how we approach different mundane type of tasks. So oftentimes we use Assistant to set a reminder, to set a timer when we're cooking, to potentially try and ask assistants to play different song that we want them to play, or kind of try to search for relatively simple type of information. So voice recognition is another thing that is only likely to grow and emerge. And right now, even Google Home is recognizing up to 6 different voices. So that's quite incredible. All the household basically can use this device and embrace this technology. And we see, again, more brands and more companies embracing it. For example, Starbucks is testing now the virtual barista. And I think more and more clients like Walmart and different flower delivery companies are emerging and testing it out. So
yeah, we only see this trend looking to grow. Like 20% of Google searches made in the app are now obviously by voice as opposed to written. In addition to that, voice search is around 50%. We expect it to be 50% of all searches by 2020. So
yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. I'm personally excited to see what will come up and what's likely to emerge.
Great. And then the mobile experience then, that one that you're offering to your users right now, it's more important than ever, right?
Yeah, exactly. And especially if, for example, users accessing your website for the very first time on a mobile device and they don't have this good experience, they are not very likely to remember and to come back to the site.
You wouldn't either. Like we put this in relation to a restaurant business, if it's a store even, if you have a really bad checkout experience or whatever the case may be, you're just not going to go back. You go for the competitor.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something to keep in mind when creating these good, positive user experiences.
Cool. And then like with creating these good, positive user in mind experiences, like we also have to be aware of how our users have evolved with this technology. So they are now a super empowered consumer, right? That's what's emerged from this. We know that. We know that like with the consumers which have evolved with that technology, they are more informed. They want they expect assistive experiences. And that has to be useful, it has to be personal, and it has to be frictionless. So for mobile, for example, what you mentioned there, Indre, think FIRE. So we think fast, integrated, reliable, and engaging. You have to do all of those things. You have to deliver because that's what you're being benchmarked against, with Starbucks and all the other brands that are out there. And we need to connect more effectively to those customers when we know that, right? So improving how we target the mobile customer, leveraging automation, going faster. And then that also brings in the need to measure and attribute more accurately the mobile interactions you're having, what it's actually doing or driving for the business to efficiently set your bids according to that Lastclick model. Cool. So the super empowered consumer is 3 things. They're curious, like myself and Indre. We're always interested in trends. They're demanding, not like Indre. I'm quite demanding. I want things now in that moment, and I don't want to have to do a lot of work for it. And they can sometimes be impatient. So you need to capture that intent when they're actually displaying those type of things. And we're going to talk briefly about those 3 things. So how does curious come into play, right? So we see that in the last 2 years, past years, we've seen mobile searches for best shower curtains more than double, right? So you can see that in the bottom right there. Over 100% queries have doubled for best shower curtains. Even the most mundane things like best toothbrushes. I don't know if you've done that yourself, Indre. Best umbrellas.
Best hairbrushes.
Best hairbrushes.
I think a lot of users are searching for best type of product they can buy. And that's why we see the emerging trend of listicles being so prominent. I think we always try to see what are the best products and how can we be more efficient in our purchases.
Totally, yeah. So this is the research before we go and make that purchase. And, there, best travel pillow, like we've seen that 300% increase, right? And whilst they're also looking for best products, they're also looking for worst. So we're always trying to we want to be more informed. We don't want to make a bad purchasing decision. And this is the way our users are going. And okay, so like that's happening, but like why, right? So there's nothing big happening here in terms of looking, okay, toothbrushes are increasing, or searches for best umbrellas. But what's really apparent, and it's become apparent to marketers who are tuned into this data, is that this is for both high and low consideration items, right? So before it would have been cars and appliances maybe that were high, whereas now like deodorants, best hairbrushes, even toothbrushes, they were low, but now that's all changed, right? The consumer dictates the level of consideration given for him or herself before they buy. So every product has now become high consideration. We're all scrutinizing over that. Okay, demanding, Indre. So I don't know about you, but when I search for a Thai restaurant, I don't expect to search for Thai restaurant near me. No.
Yeah, proximity is really something that is very important for the users, especially we will see this trend as well, that we are very likely to not plan very much in advance. So we want the results now, and there are so many companies that are actually offering the experience that they're maybe open longer hours, or they're offering faster delivery. So oftentimes we try to find shortcuts, and especially when it comes to being very spontaneous in our decisions, which near me represents perfectly.
Exactly. The shortcuts is the key word that you use there. I think that's a good way to put it. Like, we're looking at trying to be more assistive, so we don't have to include the words near me. In fact, as you can see here, we've included searches including near me are becoming rarer, right? So before we used to see that, like pubs near me, pubs nearby. That's not happening, right? They're looking for traditional Irish pubs, and they're in that area. They expect you to know they're in this proximity or radius. And so, yeah, I can see this now as consumers expect that assistance everywhere. If it's booking a seat on EasyJet, for example, with the fact that we have machine learning, we expect that you're incorporating that into your mobile strategy to pick the favorite seat. Indre might like to fly on the right-hand side of the plane. I might like to choose always on the left-hand side, right? And EasyJet are a business that are doing that, where they're actually looking at, this is the seat they booked the last time, if it's available, and they'll try and offer that to you again. We also compare our experience with booking.com as another. This is great that they have all my credentials managed. You don't have to fill out everything again. I'm auto logged in across device. This is a great user experience when I'm looking for that next top hotel I want to book. So if your brand isn't there, helping them to find what they need, well then, another brand will be. And to succeed, businesses must deliver those assistive experiences that are useful, personal, and frictionless. Those are the three things I just want to take away from today. And this kind of expert technology helps the brands to know what would be useful for them at that very moment in time, as we explained. We don't want to have to reintroduce ourselves every time. It's just a nuisance, really, spelling it out. Cool.
Yeah, when it comes to being impatient, we see that there are a lot of people that are searching for information that is relatively spontaneous. So, for example, you're maybe have an idea that you want to buy a camera, and you're likely to visit it and see it and experience it in a store, and then trying to find ways, which provider has a better deal. So, when it comes to being impatient, it really comes back to being very fast and user-centric. So oftentimes, site loading time is very important, as well as sites that do make sense and are user-centric and offer good user experiences are likely to succeed and be preferred by our users. So we talked about a bunch of examples, but more and more companies are using fast delivery offerings. So we see users demanding this type of service, and in fact, we see that specific searches for same-day delivery have doubled. And also, what I mentioned about being spontaneous without planning, oftentimes users are much more likely to search for today, tonight, this weekend, kind of very specific, not planning in advance type of queries. And also another one is open now. So we see that this specific search term has tripled in the recent times.
Yeah, so all of those things, the focus on curiosity, how demanding our consumers are, and impatient, as you said. So same day delivery, today, now. When is it open? And therefore, like, customer experience are not the product challenge or a marketing challenge. We flip that on its head and say it's the opportunity. It's a business priority, right? So this is how we win with mobile. This is how we focus on our customer and get it right and grow as a business. We need to connect better with those customers. We need to assist them more. We need to have a site that loads in a fast speed, near instant these days. And user experience needs to be roadblock free as well. Cool. So how can we action? So we've learned a bit about the landscape. We've talked a bit about the consumer and how they've evolved, but how can you take action now, today? And this is, I guess, more AdWords related, and also kind of related to your mobile assets, your site, as well as kind of choosing the right mobile investment after you're accurately measuring. So the first one there, creating ads, obviously delivering better mobile site experience, as I said, and measuring beyond Lastclick is all important, and setting bids through smarter bidding. Okay, we'll take the first one then, creating ads. Something I have great experience with. Obviously, I'm working with Indra now, but I previously was an account manager at Google, so I understand a great deal about how important this is. So getting your creatives right is a really important thing, because this is your first impression on Google search, which has been a great impression, hopefully, where we're showing the right results. So you want to continue that, don't you?
Exactly.
And that if we kind of have a great search result, well, we expect to show them a great mobile ad. We want to ensure that that customer experience isn't fragmented and it doesn't go from great to awful from that very beginning when they start with that click on the ad. Okay, so here's an example. Create ad text that appeals to users across devices. So very simple thing, but as you can see there, you need to tie your creatives to the actual keywords themselves and the ad copy you have, right? So that goes from the headline, the description, what you're saying in that kind of small real estate that you have on Google. What I mean by that is when your call to actions can be done or accomplished on those devices, that makes for a much better user experience. And so a compelling call to action, why? Well, on one device that tends to be more compelling on another, right? So if there's someone on a desktop, there could be a slightly different creative for that mobile user who is perhaps going through the shopping center and you want to drive to your store. Enticing them with a discount offer can be good. Obviously we want to have all the extensions as well. So creating best in class messaging. So those are the performance add-ons from a Google standpoint. We can see callouts there, site links to bring you to the right relevant page on the website. Callouts, so just some areas that they're not clickable, but you can see get started, all that kind of thing. And then, we have other extensions like price extensions. We have app extensions if you want them to download your app. Review extensions if you want to show kind of great customer testimonials or reviews up front, which is a good idea. And then we also have location extensions, which are all important if you're looking to drive omnichannel into the physical store. So why extensions? I've kind of talked about that, is delivering that additional info that's relevant to assist the user and provide alternative ways for them to interact with you. So I can give an example of call to message, click to message extension, where perhaps a user doesn't want to use your chat functionality on the site or get in touch with your sales team on the phone, but maybe they want to drop you a message so that they can, you can continue the conversation there. So giving the consumer choice, I think, is all important. Okay, and speaking to mobile users with if functions. So this is kind of looking at a little bit of the AI machine learning type of thing where, okay, we're being smarter here. We're customizing our ads and we're doing that at scale so that you don't actually have to do this for every individual ad copy. You don't have to do that. You should reach out to your account managers on how to do this, but if functions are a great way of if someone is browsing on a mobile device and actually sees an ad, you can show them that tailored message. So versus a desktop, right? So keep in mind that the ad creative could reflect the action you wish them to take from mobile. And you can switch that ad creative quite easily using if functions as it detects that consumer on a smartphone device. And then why, you can highlight those call to actions. They work particularly well on mobile, as I've said. But what else do you need to do? You need to test and iterate. This is all theory, but this is only good if you put it into practice. So being organized, using things like AdWords labels in your AdWords account always helps for good account hygiene. Documenting when you've added new ads, perhaps, to new ad groups. Obviously, we wouldn't recommend you have just one ad creative. Try testing between 3 to 4. Review ad group metrics. So what ones are actually getting the majority of the traffic, impressions, what ads are resonating with your consumers and converting users. And also looking at impression share is important too. So how much of those ad copies triggered by the keywords are actually getting visibility. That's really what it is in the auctions. And then deleting ads once they stop seeing a sizable chunk of impressions. So it's fine to have lots of different ads running. That's a clear message we need to test. And then focusing a bit more on audience, like, reaching users with remarketing and customer match. Some users may not be coming to the website for the very first time. In that case, we should not be showing them the same message all over again. Remarketing, just to briefly touch on that, we'd want to maybe show another a variant of what you've said to your previous creative for a first-time mobile user. Customer match, on the other hand, you may, these are people who you've uploaded your first-party data, and you can either include as another audience to target with a separate creative, or you can exclude them. And that's something that I often got as an account manager too, is that, hey, I don't want to target these people, and that's okay. You can use customer match to also exclude, and again, reach out to your account managers on that one. And yeah, so why? So I've kind of explained that. Users then just shift from one device to another as they visit your site or visit your store, call and text. Like that, it's very straightforward. Indre, this is definitely your area of expertise, delivering great mobile sites.
Yeah, and something I'm definitely very passionate about. So I think it's very important to think of what happens after users are actually clicking on your ad and delivering great user experience there. So after you paid for the user to come to your site to spend some time on investigating your product and service, you want to be sure that your site is fast enough, it works well. So one of the things that we typically recommend to keep in mind or test for would be site loading speed. It's likely to benefit you in your organic search rankings as well, because speed will be considered to be one of the ranking signals going forward. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, one of the very simple advices that oftentimes we see that is being overlooked is making sure that the URL you're using for your AdWords ads is actually the final one. So making sure that there are no redirects. Having a redirect and not using the correct URL in your AdWords campaigns can really cause about 1 to 2 second delays. And it might sound as just 1 to 2 seconds, but it can really have a strong effect on your performance and especially return on investment that you're spending with your advertising. And also, when it comes to having these positive user experiences, we talked about having stellar, delightful experiences a lot. And one of the things that we come back to again and again is site loading speed. Test My Site is one of the tools that are a bit more marketing friendly, which allows you to see how fast or slow your site is, where you stand compared to competition, and how many users you're using specifically for speed issues. There are different tools you could be using. For example, if you use Chrome and go into Audits tab, you're able to see Lighthouse tool, which is another tool we recommend using. It allows you to see many different things. Again, it can be a bit more web developer friendly, because you're able to see your waterfall and how different files are being loaded. But Lighthouse Score also allows you to see where you stand in terms of user experience, accessibility, best practices, and also how fast your site is. Also, another tool we typically recommend using is called Web Page Test, where you're also able to see film strip view functionality and investigate how your site is being loaded at which particular stage, which is a very user-centric way of approaching it, right? Because you can see exact amount of first screen being filled in at which stage, which really corresponds to site being user-centric and loaded in a very fast way possible. Moving forward, and talking about measuring mobile interactions and being a bit more driven by data.
Yeah. So thanks, Ray. You've talked about everything that's important, the visual aspects of your site loading, how fast that loads. And then obviously we've talked about the redirects, eliminating those type of things that cause minor delays, but they make the difference in incremental performance. what is a game changer for people who are maybe looking to improve their mobile strategy is to start thinking about mobile in the right way. What does that mean? That means moving beyond the last click. So moving to a non-last click attribution model is definitely something we recommend. So today, more than half of all search traffic is coming from mobile, right, and tablets, resulting in that increase of complexity, a fragmented user journey. It's just very difficult to assign credit. And we definitely shouldn't be assigning full value or credit to that last click. It's like, I don't know, Johnny Sexton's drop goal for Ireland in the Six Nations, where there was 41 phases before and the entire team were involved, but saying, do you know what? Johnny Sexton won Ireland that game against France. That's not the case, right? We all know that. So 79% of consumers use their smartphones to do product research, as we alluded to, for toothbrushes, for basic things, hairbrushes, and then 60% of the ads that consumers actually identified were influential from mobile devices when they were making those purchase decisions. And then we've also seen from our research that 44% of online adults start an activity on one device, but like to go across device and continue it on another device, finish on another. We call that multi-screen. So we often see much higher volume of conversions and better business impact and results from an investment in attribution thinking. So we need to really transform the business. Maybe it's a data-driven attribution model, or it could be time decay, it could be position-based. It doesn't matter. You need to look at your own data and to actually assess what is the right model to apply, whether it's static or whether you're using your actual data. This is because return on ad spend, your return on ad spend is all important. So yeah, so like preventing you from understanding the impact of other interactions. If we are using last click attribution, that's exactly what you're doing, and that's why we need to change. So account for mobile conversions. Yes, like we can see there that conversions that can and should be measured are at the far right there, the total conversions. And currently you're seeing conversions measured in that way, where it's just same device. Of course, there are other conversions like conversions that had cross-device activity, mobile app conversions, if that's something that you're interested in, how many calls are happening through mobile. Like that's something that myself and Indra are proud of. It's not just conversions through your website. We're looking to drive more phone calls for the business or in-store visits, right? So if you feel you've got an excellent sales team, whether it's on the phones or in your physical bricks and mortar stores, you should be measuring those, because you could be massively undervaluing the online kind of contribution from mobile. Okay, mobile apps, yeah, so the mobile interactions lead to those offline actions, as I've alluded to. Some estimates can be helpful as that measurement improves. But what do you need to track? The most important interactions for mobile, I've listed some of them here. So website call conversions, you can do that through simple AdWords conversion tracking. You can also use cross-device conversions. Again, something that's already existing in your AdWords account, so you should reach out to your account managers about. Calls from ads of your website, so that can be very simple, using a Google forwarding number or website call conversion tracking, or you might be using your own third-party response tap or some kind of response third-party to track your phone calls, messages. You can again use third-party tools for that. Shop visits, AdWords shop visit conversion tracking. We have in-store purchases. That's something that's really useful, using conversion import from Google Analytics, and then we also have app installs and in-app actions. So that's something a little separate, where you'd need to use in-app conversion tracking, but again, set up through AdWords. Okay, so you can update your strategy investment based on those interactions, because if we can't measure, well, then how can we improve? And also, how do we know whether we should invest more on mobile device bids, for example? So we need to set bids that are profitable. That goes without saying. And how do we do it? Well, automating your bids for, by using smart bidding. Why? Well, there's two things here to this. So like, obviously we have working faster, we have working smarter, but that doesn't tell me a whole lot, right? So working smarter. So firstly, we want to allow your business to free up the time so that you can actually dedicate more of your value add activities for the business and provide impactful insights to your clients, or whatever the case may be. We don't want people managing their AdWords accounts or keywords or device manually. Why not? Because it's not a good investment of their time. It's not working smart. It may be working harder though. Working faster is leveraging AI and machine learning, as I said. So we have our algorithms, which rapidly analyze 70 million signals processed within the blink of an eye. And that's by Google's algorithm. So why not use that? It's definitely more than I can, or Indre, or perhaps you at home can personally process within AdWords, right? So these are just two reasons why you should automate your bidding. So smart bidding, yeah. So we've talked about also the fact that it considers device type and the browser to make auction time bids. That gives you better results. And how so? Right. Well, we set specific device bids, right? So whether that's target CPA, enhanced CPC, or target ROAS, there are many options in terms of bid strategies that you should explore. Enhanced CPC is kind of a step in the right direction, which kind of gives you, I suppose, it kind of helps you with the automation side, but it's not giving full control to your AdWords bidding. You're still manually placing CPC bids, and you can still have device bids. With target CPA, you're setting like a maximum that you would be willing to pay for that cost per acquisition. And with ROAS, that's obviously the pinnacle where you're looking to reach, where you're actually using your business data that's telling you how much you're getting on your ad spend, so your return on ad spend, right? So that's something really valuable if you can get there. So something you should really be working with towards the automated bid strategies with your account managers. That gets you the right level, setting the right level of mobile investment. Cool. So we wanted to free up some time for questions, and we're going to try and answer some of those questions because we've flown through the content today. So hopefully we've got some. Okay, great. So we have a few. Indre, do you want to take the first one, or you can go ahead there? I mean,
is there a possibility to create campaigns based on voice queries?
Okay, I can take that one maybe, because I mean, you've talked amazingly about the website and everything else. So creating campaigns at the moment, Google has had, or I have had, and many other account managers, many questions on this. So currently we only know the trends that are out there in terms of how much voice queries now happening on the Google app. And we said that was around 20% roughly, as opposed to written queries. And then we also have the estimate that by 2020, we're going to have that surge in voice queries, right? So what I would say is that you can't create campaigns just as of yet, but you can create longer tail keywords, right? So perhaps you might want to create a campaign, just target to see how that performs based on open-ended questions, right? So think about how the user is searching, or how you might be assistive to that user in that point of time. Phrase match is obviously a good idea. You might be needing to use broad match keywords or BMM, broad match modifier, but definitely longer tail keywords, not closed, kind of search intent driven keywords, because this is usually very upper funnel where people are researching. Sometimes it may not be though, where I'm just looking for a Thai restaurant near me or around me, but we don't have currently any recommendation on creating separate campaigns. But why not try is what I would say is definitely worth a shot. Okay. Is there any way to distinguish, again, around voice search and text searches, is there any way to distinguish between voice searches and text searches in AdWords? Also, is there any way to market to voice searches? That's kind of also closely linked to the question above, which I've just answered. But hopefully, if you can reach out to your account managers, we should have more on this one. I know it's something that I constantly got, and there is research out there right now, and it's great to see that companies are already thinking about that and how they can leverage our products, but currently not as of yet.
Yeah, and then we see Piyush asking how machine learning can help us engage with the audience. I could speak more from user experience and usability perspective. So one of the things we see emerging, especially with companies that have large amount of data they can analyze, is personalization. So that's one of the things where you could apply machine learning to take advantage of all the user data that you have and basically draw insights and conclusions and business decisions based on that. So personalization is definitely one of the trends that are emerging in usability and user experience. It can be as simple as, for example, for travel client, being a lot more intuitive and what kind of user journey experience you want to offer for the user that is potentially searching for flights from London. If you know that they are based in London, it can be simple things, how you can customize their experience when they are coming for your website for multiple times. Oftentimes, we see that users are likely to come back to your site and much more likely to convert as well. It might take multiple engagements to actually for the user to find the right kind of product, right kind of information they were looking for. So just, I guess what I'm trying to say is making sure that you understand your data and that you potentially apply machine learning into finding better ways to engage with an audience.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. And then we have another question here from Altus, which is quite a good one. And it says, could you please give some tips on making your mobile page roadblock free, other than fast loading speed? That's a great question, and something that myself and Indre have fresh in our minds, because we were involved in a design sprint just last Friday in London. And really this is about conversion rate optimization. So putting your users first, and business comes later, right? Because we're putting ourselves in the user's hands here. In 5 minutes, give yourself some context, what you're trying to get the user to do. Is it roadblock? Is it roadblock free? Is it painless? Is it fast? Is it seamless? And you can very quickly identify these when you have a participant, an observer, and someone taking notes. Some companies like to do surveys. Do you maybe want to talk a bit about this?
Yeah, I think we could talk about this topic. Exactly. I think there's just so much to cover in that, but shortly, I think what's important to keep in mind is to do user testing to start with, because then you can get so much feedback and you can understand what are the roadblocks that your users are experiencing. And there are multiple ways of how to conduct user research. It can be simply doing usability cafes where you leave your office premises and you conduct user research. I know that, for example, Booking is located in central area in Amsterdam, and something that they practice very much in their company. They would just leave their office and get feedback from their users that are just experiencing Amsterdam, because it's very central area, so there are a lot of tourists, so most likely they've used their product before. We recommend to test with at least 5 users and get feedback very early on, because 5 users already allows you to draw some insights and trends from it. And also when it comes to just saving time really before building a feature that might not be useful for the users, it's very important to get early feedback and see if it's something that users would find valuable. And also I'm a huge fan of using your own data and understanding and drawing conclusions from that. So just being very aware of what are the exit points for the users, and is there any landing page in particular or any step in your user journey that is causing these issues?
Yeah, often it's just like a simple friction point, perhaps, in the process. When we talk about fast loading speed, we're also talking about perception of speed. So things like skeleton screens, which we recommend. We look at lazy loading. We look at, like prioritizing the content above the fold. Like, so what the user is expecting to see, the business logo, the menu, they can navigate, just the fact that something is becoming usable for a user. And that can hold their attention, which is obviously we're quite impatient, as we've alluded to. Yeah. Great. So cool. There's other questions I want to try and answer a few. May not be able to get through them all, guys, but I'll try. We have Arshikar here, who's been asking why call and location extensions don't regularly show up. I can answer this having been on the account management side. So with ad extensions, specifically for mobile, they're not guaranteed to show up. That's the very first thing. Of course, real estate on Google search is quite limited, as we all know, and they are seen as performance add-on. Now, of course, if you can try to, I suppose, have good quality ads, good landing pages, you're setting the right bids in your auctions, and you have, I suppose, applied at least 3 to 4 extensions, where it is possible within the space on Google search, we'll always try and show your top performing ad extensions. So whether that's a call extension, when the ad is clicked on and that appears, or whether that's a call extension and location extension, or a call extension or a view extension, that's really up to the system to determine. But my advice here would be to try and have maybe some mobile specific extensions, maybe try different ads and different ad groups. You can also add extensions at that level. But really good question. I know it's a pain point. Okay, cool. I will jump on to a few others here. So what additional signals does enhanced CPC consider over a manual CPC? Does it include browser history? Does target CPC? Okay, so there's a lot of questions here on various different bid strategies. What I would say is to get the most precise answer, because there's constant updates, to example here, enhanced CPC, of what signals it does take into account. So I don't want to go into all of that. And also for target CPA, consider considering signals? Does target CPA consider additional signals over enhanced CPC? Target CPA is a more robust model of automation, 100%, because you're kind of looking at the entire keywords and the campaigns, what's performing, and trying to set a cost per acquisition that you're going after to achieve a volume of conversions. I'm not saying one or the other is better. I'm saying that it's a more robust automation solution, but the pinnacle is target ROAS. Enhanced CPC is a good step, but it's still looking at manual CPC bidding, but taking into account other instances like what browser setting they're on, is it iOS and whatever. Maybe perhaps looking at, like someone has here, browsing history. We don't necessarily look at that. That would be going into audience-based targeting, like for similar audiences for search, like people displaying similar intent who purchased. But again, there's confusion there. Perhaps, Mike, you can reach out to your account manager as well. Tim here says, would Google Home mobile phone ever read out an ad from AdWords if we're creating campaigns for voice search? Now, that's a really good question. So now you're going beyond just thinking of your consumers, but thinking about what our products are doing for your consumers. At the moment, the capability, I'm not sure that it's there. It could be something for the future, so definitely something you should be considering, like going back to the questions above where it was about longer tail keywords, using open-ended questions for searches that are happening for consumers. But I like this question from Tim because he's actually thinking about how our business can help their consumers even more. I would maybe focus on the other things first because those are the most prominent right now. So mobile queries, what are we doing with our creatives, investment, measurement, all that kind of thing, as well as looking at the emerging technologies as you have done here. Okay, cool. And then we have something else around with the new attribution models, which would be the best for a shopping campaign. Well, it's always going to be your best user data, right? That's what we recommend. And there's many attribution solutions that are out there, and I would rather the attribution specialist answer this one. But what I would say is, of course, if a mobile user has clicked through on a shopping ad and doesn't purchase right there and then, it doesn't maybe mean they don't want to buy. Yes, okay, they're on Google Shopping, but some people prefer to go back to their laptop and actually have their card out. They may have got distracted in that moment in time. And that's when you want to focus on the site experience where we have auto login again. We have all the data, the details, the product that they were looking to buy. They just have to go back to the cart and check it out. And that's when our kind of APIs come into play, where we have credential management APIs, payment APIs, all that should help that process. And even technologies evolving like PWA, where we can engage more with the user, especially in the e-commerce field. We have another one there, Indre.
Yeah.
Is there a Google suggestion for Google voice searches, or is there some form of assisted search options for long phrase search keywords? Not presently. And this is something actually I've been talking to various people within Google about, because we hear you, Nelson, and everyone else who's raised these questions, that this is something that you're asking us for, and we need more answers. We just really have the research around kind of that voice search query volume is growing, as opposed to like text. And then, we know kind of what devices are integrating voice search. Of course, more than just Google Home, we have Amazon Alexa, we have Apple Siri, all of those devices. And those are opportunities to connect to your consumers. So again, reach out to your account manager to see if they can explore more for you. But currently, there's no suggestions around Google voice search queries other than what I've recommended here today. Is there anything else below that? I think I saw.
I believe we covered it all.
We call them all. Right. Okay, cool. I think there was one or two more that are just above here that are maybe a bit more legal oriented. So perhaps I'm not the best position to comment, but Indre, this one.
I'm afraid I don't have an answer for GDPR question either. Maybe it's something we could address after the Hangout.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely something we'll follow up on. So the question is really around remarketing features that they'd like to use, but worried about the GDPR in May. Will it still be possible to use? How do we ensure users opt in as will be legally required? From a Google standpoint, of course, we have to wait until we hear we're informed just as you are after that decision comes in May. But currently, the products are able to be used right now in the way they are. So remarketing works exactly as I've recommended today, and customer match, things like that, excluding audiences and including. And again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens in May, but really good question. Okay. So yeah, like I think that's all of them today. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So many questions. And thank you, Connor, for addressing almost all of them.
For just a few of them. Yeah, thanks for your time, guys. Hopefully you found myself and Indre's presentation useful. And yeah, there will be all of this deck will be provided to you at a later stage. Please tune in to the next episode. This is the third part of the Academy on Air, and reach out to your account managers if you have any other queries or questions. But thanks for the engagement, guys, and wish you all the best. Have a good week.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.